When I said mid-year, I meant more like midway through the year, because you know, this is my June wrap-up, but it's been a mid-year too, so that works. What up, gamers? So I read 3 books in June, and I happen to give all of them 3 stars. Give or take like half a star, because Goodreads doesn't allow half stars. But yeah, every book I read this month was just mid. And also I realized every book I read this month had a lesbian main character. Slay. Basically, I'm that Marge Simpson meme. Also, side note, my phone ran out of storage twice when I was filming this. So if the clip jumps around and I'm wearing a different outfit, you know why. So just a quick disclaimer. I didn't plan on making this video when I read these books, so I didn't take as good of notes as I should have, so my summaries might be kind of bad. You have been warned. So the first book I read this month was Cinderella is Dead by Kalynn Bayron. So this book takes place 200 years after the story of Cinderella, and basically the society has completely gone to shit. Basically, Cinderella's story is used as propaganda to control women, and the society is super sexist, and there's all that stuff about how the father is the head of the household, and how mothers and daughters can't leave the house without the head of household's permission. You know, classic misogynistic bullshit. And every year, all the women of marrying age have to attend this ball to get suitors, but the main character, Sophia, doesn't want to do any of that stuff. She just wants to run away with her child best friend Aaron and leave all of this stuff behind. So when it comes time for the actual ball, Sophia ends up running away, and she meets Constance, who is the descendant of one of Cinderella's stepsisters. And what they start learning is that Cinderella's story might not be all it seems. So basically, they set out on a mission to discover the truth about Cinderella and the evil king who is forcing all of the women to go to these balls. So I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was decent. It is a relatively simple and predictable story, but I really like the feminism aspect of the story. One thing in particular I thought was really interesting is the idea of basically choosing between following the status quo and doing what will make you happy. And this is very well illustrated by Sophia's relationship with her parents. Basically, as I mentioned, she doesn't want to follow any of these rules. She thinks they're super messed up and she wants to do her own thing and be free, basically. But obviously, this is not possible in this super sexist society. Her parents know that she's gay and that she would rather run off with her best friend. But it's really interesting, especially with how the mom acts in particular, of how obviously she had to go through the same thing, where she obviously followed through with doing what is expected of her. You can kind of see that battle in herself, where she is telling Sophia to just follow the rules, go to the ball, and get married. But you can also tell that as much as she's telling Sophia to do this, it also pains her to do that, because it's very obvious that she does love Sophia and that she wants her to be happy and to be herself. But in that moment, they've decided that being safe and unhappy is better than being free and possibly fearing for your life. So yeah, I thought that dichotomy was super interesting, and in that way it's very relatable in terms of, you know, coming to terms with your identity. But yeah, I thought the plot was kind of simple and predictable, but if you're in the mood for a sapphic Cinderella retelling, I definitely recommend. The next book I read was Tell Me an Ending by Joe Harkin. So in this book, technology exists that makes it possible to remove memories, and these procedures are run by this company called Nepenthe. Nepenthe? I don't know. Something Greek. Yeah. But yeah, people can get their memories removed, and basically there's 2 types of patients. You can be an informed patient or a confidential patient. So informed patients are basically people who have maybe experienced something traumatic, so they want to get the literal memory of whatever happened removed, but they still want to remember the fact that it happened. They just don't want to remember the exact details of everything that happened. So they remember that they had that experience, but they don't remember the actual experience. So confidential patients get their memory removed, but they also get the memory removed of them having removed their memory. Inception. So basically, they have a memory removed, but they also don't remember that they had a memory removed. And basically what they find out is that memory removal is not 100%. So even if you get your memory removed, sometimes somewhere along the line, you start getting what they call traces, where basically you start getting like traces of those removed memories coming back. So let's say there's a confidential patient who got in a car accident and decided to have the memory removed of the car accident. So they don't remember the car accident itself, and they don't remember the fact that they were in a car accident. So when they start getting traces, they start getting maybe flashbacks or like kind of hallucination type things, where they're remembering like being in a crash, or they're remembering like the other people that were in the crash, that kind of thing. And since those patients don't remember getting the memory removed to begin with, they basically think they're hallucinating or going crazy. So basically this huge lawsuit happens, and basically the ruling is that the company is legally required to disclose to the confidential patients that they had a memory removed because they have a right to those memories and they have a right to restore them if they choose. So basically there are 5 main characters that the point of view switches between. So there's Noor, who is a psychiatrist that works for Nepenthe, and then there's 4 other characters, May, Will, Oscar, and Finn. Basically throughout the story, they each find out that they were a confidential patient. Actually, I think one of them was married to someone who it turned out to be a confidential patient. But yeah, basically they're navigating, getting those traces, being confused about the memories they're getting, and deciding whether or not they want to get their memory restored. So it's a very speculative sci-fi book. It's a lot about exploring the idea of memory removals and restorations and kind of what could go wrong with them, and the legal consequences and how they truly affect people's lives. So I ended up giving this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. So I was super interested when I first heard about it. It seemed very like Black Mirror-esque, like there would be a huge plot twist at the end and super plot driven. And honestly, that was kind of the problem. It did not meet my expectations. It ended up being more like speculative. A lot of characters just sitting around and talking. Some of it was speculation about the actual idea of memory removal and restoration, but then there was also quite a bit of characters just talking about random stuff that didn't seem relevant. Like there's this one character who's an architect, and they keep having like dinner guests over, and they keep describing how he's like, ooh, super charismatic, he's really funny, he makes these great jokes, and then they'll just be like showing full conversations that he has with his guests, where he's like being funny and stuff and telling all these jokes, and I'm like, how is this relevant exactly? Yeah, and also there were so many characters. Like, obviously there are the 5 main characters that the plot switches between, but then obviously within all of those stories, they all have side characters, because these 5 people, I thought it was going to be more intertwined, but it was actually quite separate. So each character has like at least 5 extra side characters within their story that they talk about. So it started getting quite confusing and hard for me to keep track of all of these people. And I think each of these characters do explore some kind of different avenue with the concept of memory restoration and removal, but I feel like it could have been simplified and cut down to maybe like 3-4 characters. The fact that there were 5 of them and the fact that their stories were actually quite separate made it just kind of too much. So if you're more into stories that are more plot driven, kind of twisty, sci-fi with emphasis on the sci, like me, I would skip this book. If you're more interested in like the literary speculative aspect and just like the philosophy, the thinky stuff, maybe you would like this book more than I did. But yeah, those are my thoughts. And the third and last book I read this month was called The Paradox Hotel by Rob Hart. This is another sci-fi book. Basically, it takes place in a world where time travel exists. So basically the world's elite go and stay at this place called the Paradox Hotel, which is right down the street from where the time travel machine is. And the whole idea is like people can take vacations in eras in the past, but they adhere to this strict rule of look, don't touch. So these people can time travel, but they're only allowed to look at what happens. They're not allowed to change anything, because the scientists are fairly sure that if they change anything that's too drastic, it will, have the classic butterfly ripple effect, and it'll basically mess up the entire universe and destroy it. Something else about the hotel, people think it's haunted, and there's ghosts, where basically random stuff will happen that people can't explain, where they might see someone walking through the lobby for a couple seconds before disappearing, or random objects being knocked over, that kind of thing. And so the main character is January, who is the head of security at the Paradox Hotel. And basically she is unstuck, which is this concept where people who have time travel too much kind of get like out of sync with time. So she basically can see traces of the past and future before or after they've already happened. So for example, like she's walking around the hotel and she'll see someone knock something over like 5 minutes before it actually happens. But the problem with being unstuck is the further you progress through the stages, the worse it gets. So it gets harder and harder to distinguish these traces from reality, and you also start to see them more. And basically in one of the hotel rooms, January discovers a corpse, but only she can see it. And she's convinced that this person has not been murdered yet, so she's trying to figure out how to stop his murder before it actually happens. And an overarching thing that's happening throughout the story is that the concept of time travel was publicly owned and funded by the government, but it's not earning enough money somehow, even though it's time travel. But yeah, the industry isn't bringing in enough money, so the government decides to auction it off. So this small group of billionaires come in and they're gonna hold an auction to sell off the time travel machine to the highest bidder. And whoever wins will get the building that the time machine is in, as well as the Paradox Hotel. And basically there's a snowstorm that ends up trapping everyone there and prevents anyone from going on any time travel vacations. And it also delays the auction for a few days. Meanwhile, it seems like someone's trying to assassinate the billionaires. So, you know those ghosts I mentioned earlier? Well, basically some weird stuff has been happening with them. Like, for example, one of the billionaires is really allergic to nuts, and there's this one part where they're getting dinner served, and January sees a vision of the billionaire eating something and then having an allergic reaction and dying. So she sees this, and she sees this right when they're about to get served something. So she basically like runs over there and like stops him. And so she's asking like, does he have an EpiPen and whatever? And the guy's brother usually carries his EpiPen for him. And so she goes back and looks at the security footage, and there's just like one brief frame where it looks like the brother has his EpiPen in his pocket, but then the next second it's gone. It looks like the pocket like shifted and then the EpiPen got taken away. So yeah, it looks like these ghosts are manufacturing ways for these billionaires to get killed. So now, in addition to trying to solve the murder of the corpse that she found, she also has to prevent these billionaires from getting killed by ghosts. So this book I ended up rating 2.5 out of 5 stars, which honestly was quite disappointing because I enjoyed most of the book. I thought it was really funny, it was very easy to get through and enjoyable to read, but the ending was, bro, what was that? And honestly, I can't really get into it without spoiling it, so here's your spoiler warning. I'm gonna spoil the ending of this book. So basically, long story short, I'm not gonna give you context because who cares. Basically, at the end, January has to stop this dude from going back in time and making himself a billionaire, because as I mentioned, going back in time and drastically changing the past has the potential to destroy the universe. So basically, her and this dude are duking it out, and as I was reading it, I very much got the impression that January was gonna die. So what I thought was gonna happen was that basically they kill each other in the battle, and then she successfully prevents him from going back in time and destroying the universe. But what actually happens is they're fighting, and then this dude like leaps at her, and the chapter ends. So it's implied that he just like kills her. So if he kills her, she wasn't able to successfully stop him from going back in time. So presumably, if that happened, the universe would be destroyed. But then in the epilogue, everything's completely fine. Like, January's dead, obviously, but like the world didn't get destroyed. And so I'm just so confused on what the hell happened. Like, were the scientists wrong? Does going back in time and changing the past not destroy the universe? Or did he just like fail somehow? Like, they don't acknowledge it at all. They don't explain like what happened. There's no acknowledgement of that dude whatsoever. So if we're taking that at face value, that seems to mean like, obviously because they changed the past, they wouldn't know that that dude isn't supposed to be there. Because he would just have been there all along, basically. But like, why would he do that? Why would that be the ending? Like, it just made absolutely no sense, and I was so confused. I thought I missed something, and all of this confusion and this ending would have been smoothed out if they just did what I had predicted would have happened, which is like, they just kill each other in the battle. Like, that would have been totally valid, totally fine, and, you know, nice, clean ending. So I don't know if he intended it for it to be like, the dude successfully went back in time, and it doesn't change the future, it doesn't destroy the universe, and it's supposed to say something about time travel and consequences or something. So yeah, if somebody read this book and understands what the hell he was trying to say, please let me know, because I did not get it. And yeah, reading that really upset me because I was really enjoying the book, but the fact that the ending made absolutely no sense, that book could have been a solid 3.5, but I had to mark it down. Cause bro, what the hell? But yeah, just one last non-spoilery comment. So the main character, January, before she was the head of security at the Paradox Hotel, she used to be like a time agent. Basically, she was like a secret agent, but for time. Her and her partner would go on missions to stop people from trying to change the past. Like, there's this one scene where they go back in time to stop this dude who's trying to save Hitler from killing himself. And it was like super fun and interesting to read about. I would have much preferred just reading a book about random time travel missions. Like, that sounds like fun. But yeah, those were the books I read in June. I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts, my comments, my mini rants, and also apologies in advance or in hindsight, because I'm pretty sure this video is going to end up being late because I'm working on my secondary applications for mid school. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as usual, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Goodbye! Quiet summer nights,